为了花给你看，到了40多岁、50岁那些人想结婚都结不了啊，后悔当初没结婚了。你没看那手机那些视频啦啊？你一天看那些啥子？我为了为花看我花给你看，你还说我那样说我那样。你到了45岁那个是啷个做？就说你30多岁你这孩子有了病，啷个做？
有了病就死哦，
死不下去，
死不下去，拖着死哦，
拖着死，死过哪给你收尸？
那死过了，我都死过了，还有哪个给我收尸？无所谓了，爱丢到哪儿就丢哪儿。
我爸的一句话就能让我泪流满面。
I always thought I could handle being urged to get married pretty well. After all, at 32, I've heard such remarks countless times over the years and have grown used to it. But unexpectedly, one sentence from my dad still made me burst into tears. It turns out I was just running away all along. As the Lunar New Year approached, I told my parents that I couldn't get a train ticket home this year and might not be able to return. My mom bluntly asked if I simply didn't want to come back at all. My dad overheard and got anxious, saying, "How can you not come home for the spring festival? What's wrong with you?" At that moment, I quickly said I was joking. He heaved a sigh of relief and added, "We've prepared lots of good food, just waiting for you to come back and enjoy it." I smiled and replied, "How lucky I am." But then he continued, "Wouldn't it be even better if you brought a boyfriend home?" At that point, I didn't choose to avoid the topic but tried to respond directly to his urging. I told him, "I can't bring one home right now. I'm not in the mindset for it, and I haven't met anyone suitable." However, my dad quickly sent me a long message. He said I must seize the time to find a boyfriend because the older you get, the harder it is to choose. Time waits for no one, especially when it comes to such an important matter as marriage. Once you miss the opportunity, it won't come back, and life will become very difficult in the second half. These words, so familiar and commonplace, felt like a heavy stone suddenly pressing on my chest, making it hard to breathe. I couldn't argue back, nor did I want to. My only response was tears that wouldn't stop falling. I know my parents mean well and understand their anxiety. But the gap between us feels like a chasm. Neither of us can fully stand in the other's shoes to understand their perspective. Especially my mom. While I understand her urgency, I can't comprehend why, once I'm home, she and my dad must bring up marriage at every meal and weave it into every conversation. They're afraid of my loneliness, and I know loneliness isn't good. But can they really understand me? Can someone with neither shared interests nor initial attraction truly become my life partner? The answer is clearly no. To force myself into a relationship with someone I find entirely unappealing, to spend a lot of time trying to understand them, and to attempt to cultivate feelings, what's the point of all that? To me, the essence of urging marriage is that they subconsciously overlook the importance of the person themselves. In their eyes, a spouse in marriage is more of a companion, someone to go home with during the new year or to attend events together. But to me, this person will deeply influence my lifestyle and life trajectory. This difference in perception has caused endless disagreements on this path. Especially for an older single woman like me, the journey is even more challenging. While I assess others, others are also assessing me. At this age, we've grown more indifferent and laissez-faire about love. We no longer have enough patience or time to wholeheartedly focus on cultivating a relationship. People pay more attention to time costs, emotional value, and whether various values align. In this fast-paced era, everyone hopes to find true love. Yet true love takes time to develop, and patience is precisely what we lack. Actually, I've already figured things out. In my small apartment over 1,000 kilometers away from home, where no one urges me to marry or compares me to others, I live a content life. But once someone starts bringing up marriage or uses harsh words to poke at my emotions repeatedly, my inner peace gets shattered. I feel flustered, inadequate, and even deeply anxious and fearful about the future. And once these emotions are triggered, it takes a long time to slowly digest them. Tomorrow is New Year's Eve. What I want to say is, whether it's my parents or my extended family, during the New Year reunion, let's eat, drink, and chat about everyday things, but please don't bring up marriage again. Urging marriage only brings me negativity and won't truly help us. Because you don't understand what happiness means to us, nor can you see our longing and persistence for a beautiful life.
我爸妈就问我，你今年对象找得咋样了？
When I went back home for the new year, as soon as I stepped through the door, my parents couldn't wait to ask me, "How's your relationship status this year?" My dad immediately followed up with, "Did you find someone or not?" My mom pressed further, When are you getting married? Before I could answer, my younger brother chimed in, hurry up and get married already. Then, all my aunts and uncles surrounded me, bombarding me with questions. Have you found a partner yet? You're almost 40 years old. Soon, you won't even be able to have kids. In that moment, it felt like everyone was urging me to get married. Their urgency and enthusiasm made me wonder, is this really about them wanting me to get married, or is it something I truly want for myself? Why does it feel like they're more anxious about this than I am, the so-called main party? All their chatter left me feeling immense pressure. In truth, I'm not against marriage, nor do I have no intention of getting married. Deep down, I genuinely yearn to have a warm family of my own, to walk into marriage hand in hand with someone I love, to have a child of our own, and to enjoy a simple and happy life as a family, gathered around a cozy hearth. I often imagine such a life and think it would be incredibly beautiful. But dreams are dreams, and reality is rarely so kind. In real life, I simply haven't met a normal man who makes my heart race or feels dependable. Even though I yearn for it in my heart, relationships aren't something that can be rushed or forced. This sense of helplessness makes me feel deeply tormented. Late at night, when I'm alone, I often hug my blanket and cry my heart out, crying until my voice is hoarse. These vulnerable moments are invisible to others. During the day, I put on a strong, carefree facade for my family and friends, but in the quiet of the night, all my emotions come flooding in. It's in these moments that I feel most fragile and in need of companionship. How I wish there was a man who could understand me, care about me, and stay by my side to be my support.
和我一样大龄未婚的姐妹们，现在过年回家了，感觉怎么样？
Going home for the new year, my fellow older unmarried sisters. How do you all feel? I am 34 years old this year and still single, a bona fide older unmarried woman. Yesterday, I met one of my cousins, and as soon as she saw me, she started her campaign to urge me to get married. She tried to convince me, saying that I have already passed the prime age for childbirth, and asked what I plan to do in the future. She even used herself as an example, saying that by the time she was my age, she already had 2 children. In the past, I would have argued with her and refuted her point by point. But now, I find that I don't even have the energy to debate anymore. I am quite familiar with this cousin's family situation. Her husband was caught cheating, and she caught him red-handed. However, in the end, they didn't separate. I heard about this from another older cousin for a simple reason. In our small town, if a couple gets divorced, people would inevitably gossip about their children, saying things like, children from a divorced family. She worried that it would negatively affect her children's mental and emotional health. So, she chose to compromise and continue the marriage. During our chat yesterday, she suddenly asked me a question. She said that her daughter, who is only 12 years old, often tells her, "Mom, I definitely won't get married in the future." This puzzled her, so she came to ask for my opinion. After hearing this, I only said one sentence. If your daughter has this idea, you and your husband definitely need to reflect on your own relationship. As parents, you are role models for your children. If you want her to change her perspective, you have to lead by example, right? After I said this, she fell silent and didn't bring up the topic again. Our conversation naturally ended at that point. Honestly, I don't feel like her mocking me holds any real significance. After all, her own life isn't particularly happy either. She just probably hasn't realized it yet. What's even more interesting is that people like her, whose lives are a mess, always seem eager to ridicule others. This makes me feel both bored and disinterested. We're all adults, and we're all aware of each other's life situations, but I can't be bothered to expose it. After all, what's the point of pointing it out? It doesn't benefit anyone, does it?
90年35岁的我
Born in the 1990s, I'm now 35 years old. Compared to the festive atmosphere that the new year should bring, I feel as frightened as a pig being driven to the slaughter table. For me, going home has never been an easy task, because every time I return, it means fighting a tough New Year survival battle. I am the only one in my entire family who is still unmarried, and this identity always makes me feel an invisible pressure and an unavoidable awkwardness. Watching relatives and friends around me step into the hall of marriage one after another, I have come to truly realize that I have reached the so-called age to talk about marriage. However, I have never been able to step into that role. I always feel like a child who hasn't grown up, with no real readiness for marriage. Or to be more honest, I am unwilling to prepare for it because deep down, I fear the responsibilities and pressures that marriage brings. I think I might be too selfish, unwilling to do laundry or cook for others, and I don't want to trap my life in the trivialities of daily life like rice, oil, and salt. I want to live more easily and freely, and I don't want to give up this freedom for the sake of marriage. Yet, it's contradictory because sometimes I fear marriage, but other times I can't help but envy those who have found happiness in it. I often ask myself repeatedly in my heart, why can others find their happiness, but I seem to always miss it? Whenever I think of this, I feel that the topic of marriage is too heavy for me, making it hard to breathe. To be honest, I am not someone with outstanding looks, nor do I come from a wealthy family that others would envy. I can't even boast about having a high level of education or the kind of ability that makes me shine in a crowd. In a crowd, I am just the most ordinary person who goes unnoticed. However, even as someone like me, I have once dreamed of love and yearned to have a sweet story of my own. But reality tells me that my love seems to be like the moon in the water or the flower in the mirror, visible but never attainable. When I lower my head to look at my empty wallet and raise my head to see youth slipping away at lightning speed, I feel nothing but helplessness, with no strength to rely on.
我已经回来老家3天了，在这3天里面呢，没有人给我介绍对象。
I have been back in my hometown for 3 days now. During these 3 days, no one has brought up introducing me to potential matches, and my parents haven't urged me to get married. Everything seems very calm, as if I've temporarily gained a moment of peace. I think to myself, this isn't too bad. Because if someone really tried to introduce me to someone, I wouldn't be able to refuse, but at the same time, I would feel very uneasy. If I go, I'd be reluctant. If I don't go, it would seem inconsiderate. And to be honest, I am a rural person myself, but I don't want to marry back into the countryside. The marriage circle in our rural area is basically saturated, especially for someone like me who is already 39 years old and long deemed undesirable. In the city, perhaps my age would still have some advantages, but in the countryside, it's completely different. People here have relatively limited perspectives and always associate women over 30 with being unwanted. Even if someone were to introduce me to a potential match, they are mostly second marriages, divorced men, or even those with children. Just like before, someone introduced me to a divorced man, and whether I went or not, I felt trapped. If I went to meet him but didn't like him, others would say I'm too picky or have too high standards, and they might even mock me, saying it's no wonder I'm still single at 39. Conversely, if he didn't like me, he might sarcastically remark that I'm already 39, close to menopause, and still out here for blind dates. In any case, unpleasant words would follow, which always makes me feel particularly frustrated. In fact, I'm very clear in my heart that I don't want to marry into the countryside. It's simply not what I truly want. But if I force myself to meet these so-called blind dates, I feel like I'm completely going against my inner thoughts. For this reason, I've been particularly afraid of returning to my hometown over the past few years. Every time I come back, I don't even dare to visit relatives. No matter who I meet, they always ask this and that, talking endlessly. This makes me extremely irritated. Originally, I would bring fruit as a gesture of goodwill to visit them, but every time their string of questions and discussions completely ruins my mood. This feeling might only be truly understood by women like us who are labeled as leftover women. If I don't visit relatives and friends, they'll say something like, whose daughter has come back home but doesn't even stop by to say hello. She doesn't have the most basic manners. Anyway, coming back to the rural hometown always brings a heap of headaches. For this reason, I spend most of my time staying alone in my room. Only in my room do I feel at ease. Because once someone hears that someone's daughter hasn't gotten married and is back alone for the new year, they'll come to our house to dig for gossip. It's truly exasperating. For me, only in my room can I temporarily escape these endless remarks. However, now that no one is pressuring me, I feel a rare sense of relaxation and relief. Being able to stay quietly like this is truly a blessing.
2025年回家过年，第一次相亲，还没见着相亲对象。
In the spring festival of 2025, I went home to celebrate the new year and experienced something that I still find hard to let go of. It was my first blind date this year, but, embarrassingly, I didn't even get to meet the person. The other party had already made it clear that he didn't want to meet me. What's even more unacceptable is that the man knows who I am, while I have no idea who he is. This one-sided rejection left me with an unprecedented sense of humiliation. To be honest, this way of being rejected made me feel deeply humiliated, as if it were the greatest insult. I felt indignant inside, thinking that he should at least let me know his identity. Otherwise, this matter would undoubtedly become a knot in my heart forever. I don't intend to go to his home to look for him because, truly, I have no such plans. So, you'd better not tell me where your home is. Even if you did tell me, I wouldn't go to your home, really. I hope this matter ends here. If this kind of thing is made public, it would only make me feel even more embarrassed. I have to say, in a place like Heasy, there are already very few young women, especially unmarried and childless ones, who are as rare as a phoenix feather or a unicorn's horn. Even women who are divorced or have 2 children rarely encounter a situation where they are explicitly rejected before the blind date even begins. Yet this misfortune happened to me, leaving me extremely upset and disheartened. Is it just because the man knew that I am a well-known leftover woman in this area? So he refused to meet me even before seeing me face to face? You, man, had better not let me find out who you are.
During the Chinese New Year, many older single women are urged by their parents to get married. In fact, the root of the problem lies within themselves. Those women who are still single in 2025 and considered older single women often ignored advice from others when they were younger. Before turning 30, they usually focused on their careers, and it wasn't until after 30 that they started worrying about finding a partner. They completely reversed the order of these two matters. Isn't this precisely the reason why they ended up becoming older single women step by step? If they had made it clear from the beginning that they didn't want to get married, then, of course, choosing not to marry is perfectly fine. However, some hold on to the fantasy that getting married later can still lead to finding a quality partner, which is an extremely unrealistic mindset. I have seen countless real-life cases. In reality, the later you start looking for a partner, the lower your chances of meeting someone who is both normal and suitable. A man who is genuinely good in terms of conditions, mentally healthy, and has a good personality. How could he possibly still be unmarried at a later age? Think about it carefully. A man who is not young anymore and still has no companion. Either he has some issues himself, or he is picky, has high demands, and is difficult to get along with. If you're already in your 30s, still single, and want to get married, then the most important thing is to adjust your mindset. Stop indulging in wild fantasies and instead look at marriage with a more rational perspective. Learn to have more tolerance so that when you meet someone who may have some minor flaws, you can better adjust yourself and know how to deal with and accept him. Only by adopting this mature and pragmatic mindset can you find a suitable partner more quickly and get out of singlehood sooner. Do you agree with my point of view? Feel free to leave your comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to our channel. Your support is very important to us, and we will continue to provide better programs for you. Thank you again for watching, and see you next time.